general session, GC and board, governing board, reconvening at 6:42. Okay, I'm gonna do a roll call once again. Michael Roberts has an excused absence. Gonzalez is not here with us. Nora Lopez, Pete Pryor, and Laura Bernal. We are going to now reserve this time for public comment. So I have several forms here for public comments. I'm just going to go down the line as I see them here. If that's okay with everyone. I'm going to start with Jason Rivas.
Sorry. Hello, my name is Jason Davis, and I have a first grader here who's been coming here since kindergarten last year. And my concern about, I'm reading volunteer hours, how you guys want to change it from volunteering 8 hours for the whole month. When I know several parents that are really involved, they can do 8 hours in 1 week. And I've been to a couple coffee with the principal, and she really encouraged participation, involvement with the parents. And now that's kind of taken away from what she discussed. And I was wondering if that could be changed or overridden to where we're able to volunteer as much as necessary. And because I've had people come to me asking me questions, and I'm trying to answer the best I can. And sometimes I don't have the right answer to give them. And another quick concern about buying buses or vans for the school. That money, I would personally think could be better spent on the education, what we're lacking here, to see if we were able to use the district's buses as a cheaper means transportation. And I know a lot of parents too, they also like to take their kids with them to the school trips, and that encourages the relationship, just being out there with your kids. I mean, me personally, I wish I could go to every trip, but I'm not able. My wife goes, that's fine. She's not able to all the time also, but I appreciate the other parents that are able to do that. And just thank you for listening. Appreciate it.
We have Valerie Rodriguez.
Started in kindergarten. I have two concerns, primarily with the volunteer policy. On a very, very selfish note, the 48-hour policy notification for the teachers. I am a full-time working mom. My husband is also full-time work. I feel that it would be very, very unfortunate for us working parents if we, so for example, I have tomorrow off. If the policy is if it's instated that the way that it says, I will not be able to volunteer when I randomly get days off. And so, you know, as a working parent, we cherish those days when we have the days off and we can come in and talk to the teachers. I know that we need to communicate with the teachers to make sure that it's okay to volunteer. But those days when we have off and we don't have 48 hours to communicate is really, really rough on us working parents. On a less selfish note, I understand the importance of fingerprinting because I myself work for an MBA. I work with special ed children, so I understand the need for fingerprints. My concern is we are a very, very we have parents that might not have documentation, and therefore, with the way that things are now, with them not having the ability to get fingerprinted, if it's through the DOJ, if it's through the FBI, how do we then support them to be able to be included into the school community with their kids, for them to be able to go to field trips and participate? I feel that would maybe, exclude them from being able to participate with their kids, as well as being able to come into the classrooms and see what their kids are learning. That's it.
Andrew Sandoval.
My name is Andrew Sandoval and I have 4 kids at Oasis Charter School. Ya basta con la discriminación de la gente que no habla inglés. Ya basta con los abusos de autoridad. Stop misusing our school funds for lawyers to defend your own actions. Ya basta con los niños de necesidades especiales no recibiendo servicios. It's sad that it takes a visit from the district attorney to get this administration and this board to start doing what is right. Stop making policies to stop families from participating in the education of their children. How can Augustin, the head of student services at Hartnell, provide effective oversight as president when he himself has a suspension for the student code of conduct and related policies and procedures? I hope as the investigation continues, we find no evidence of cover-ups of physical abuse by staff or board members. It's not too late to start making the right choice. It's not about the money, it's not about the power, it's about the kids. And the board and the director have the responsibility to educate our children. I have now talked to over 50 families, and their traumas and stories will soon be shared in a video documentary. Los derechos de los padres y los niños no se deben quitar para esconder problemas aquí en la escuela. I hope I'm not going to get another letter from you with more false accusations about today. If you want to put a wall around Oasis like Trump, at least get a permit. Stop trying to control Oasis parents and restricting their freedom of speech. It's also time for our teachers to unionize. Teachers becoming a union will help provide better pay and job security. Our teachers get 23% less in our district, but our director's salary is higher than the district average. Teachers do the work. Teachers should get the good pay.
Hello, my name is Ruth and I have 4 children here. I am here to ask for a meeting with the staff that the letters that we have that are false accusations, to sit down and talk with them about them and get those clear, because they're not true. They're twisted and it's wrong, and our director here has made us to be a monster, made our family to be a monster. We're not. Unfortunately, we did have to go with the media in order to get help. I am here to help the teachers. I'm here to help my kids' teachers, whatever they do. And with these new policies that are trying to be put in place, it's wrong. Because I think every teacher that I've had, they know whatever they need, they can call me, they can text me. I'm here in moments to get them whatever supplies, whatever help they need. I'm here. And unfortunately, being here a lot, you see things that are wrong. and you have to bring them to light. It's the right thing to do. And unfortunately, the way we've gone, it's sad, but it had to be done. And I'm just asking for that meeting because it needs to be clear. We're not here to hurt the teachers. We're here to help them.
Thank you. Casey Buck, please.
Good evening. As you know, I'm a parent of a first grader here, and I also was an employee here. And there are things that I have seen that are not right here, and there's been some false allegations, not only against me, but other families, and the disagreements seem to not be resolved. And then there's this new policy, which has been based on those false allegations. These new policies, I think, need to be seriously amended before they are voted on. I feel like 48 hours in advance, as another parent was saying, that's quite a bit of time to try to arrange for volunteerism. Sometimes teachers need help last minute that morning. They're like, oh, you can stay, for an hour. And so it should be up to the classroom teacher's discretion on that one. Furthermore, for the TB testing, I don't disagree with that, to add that with the fingerprint, but who's going to pick up the cost? I know that Oasis pays for some of the cost of the fingerprinting, but I feel that they should be picking up some of the cost of that TB test if they think it's necessary for parents. Usually that's just an educator policy, but if you guys feel it's necessary, I feel like it should be amended in terms of the share of cost. And the 8 hours, max for a month, you could max that out in a day going on a field trip. You can work 6 to 7 hours as a volunteer, and then you can't work again the rest of the month. So if the teacher needs help, you have to say no. That sounds, like it needs to be amended. There should be no limit. We've not had enough volunteers at this school since that law passed some years ago. There's never been enough volunteers, and we all know that. And so to limit the hours is limiting that volunteer list even further. I feel like there has not been due process, for certain allegations. It's gotten a little bit better in my experience. The executive administrator has taken steps to improve that and at least talk to both parties before letters are sent and people are asked to leave campus. However, with this new policy, it looks like the executive administrator does not even have to recommend things to the board in terms of kicking people off or things like that, whatever she decides. And so I feel like there needs to be some kind of vote and due process. It needs to not just be up to her discretion to decide that. And as for reasonable basis in terms of has a right to be on campus, even if there's reasonable basis for for concluding the visitor presence is interfering. What is reasonable basis? What kind of evidence are we going to be asking for to say, oh, it's reasonable for me to ask you to leave campus? Why? And what is the allegation? And there needs to be a sit down. It should not be just a reasonable basis in the wording. And furthermore, on the vehicles, Santa Rita just got their first electric bus, and I feel like this needs to be a continued issue before any transportation is purchased. I feel like the maintenance cost is going to be variable. It's not going to be $70. Gas is going to be variable. Mileage is going to be variable. And I feel like it really needs to be looked at, and what kind of drivers and what we're going to require of that. Okay?
Virginia Avila? Are you Virginia? Oh, okay.
Hello, my name is Virginia Avila. I'm a parent of 2 kids here at Oasis. When I heard of a charter school having experience with my family members in Los Angeles, having their kids in charter school, I was excited to come here, especially with the knowing that there was only 250 kids in the whole school. I thought, my kids would be excelling and there was something to brag about. I've gotten to love this school, and things, activities like box band, camping, just a lot of programs that you guys offer that other schools don't. But I'm still waiting for that wow factor. Like, my kid goes to a charter school. this is our second year, and my first year I said, okay, well, it's a kindergartner and a second grader who's coming from a class that, or a school that he was having trouble with. So I gave it a second chance, a second year. But unfortunately, like many other families that I've known, we are going to be leaving. This will be my kid's last year. And I think you guys should take a closer look or do something about all these families that are leaving, because there has to be a reason why. I don't think it's a coincidence. I think there's a lack of structure in many things. I was here for my kids' election for Duke, and I was here for 1 hour, and he did 4 different things in that 1 hour. He was doing math for 15 minutes when I was there. He was rushed to last year a Lego class that was like a quarter of the page was done. And then he went from that to going back to his class to do a spelling test that, not a spelling test, a writing test, while everybody else was playing and there was 3 kids testing. And I just think that I couldn't focus. I don't see how they can focus. There's a lot of lack of structure here that I don't like, and it's not benefiting my children. So I'm sad that we're leaving, but it hasn't improved, so that's all I want to say.
Maria Verduzco.
Hello, my name is Maria Verduzco and I'm from Florida, Spain. I have 2 kids in this school. This is the second year. I have a first grader and a 6th grader. My concern is when they came, I got my kids living one day and then left. And went on with my day, and I was thinking they're safe, they're in school, everything's okay. It's not that something has happened to them or that they haven't gotten hurt or anything, but I came back that day and I found out my daughter was not even in school that day. She went out of town for a field trip that I didn't know about and the teacher didn't know about. The teacher is always, really persistent with us to know what our kids are doing, where they're at, and she's always sending pictures and posters for us to know what they're doing. But the other day, I'm still kind of shaky, because I don't know who my daughter drove with. I usually go with her, but if I don't go, I make sure I know who they're living with. But that day, I think they took a bus. Thank God nothing happened, but she was out of school, not only out of school, out of town without me. No, without my concern. And I'm just, scared. I don't know if that's ever going to happen again. I don't know if next time I come, that's going to happen with my first grader. I'm just, kind of concerned and scared about that. That's what I want to use this tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else from the public?
My name is Kat Garcia, and I am up here as a parent, not as the OCC member. And I just wanted to ask the board to please revisit the 8-hour volunteer. I've been extremely busy with work, so I'm barely catching up with all of this stuff. I've been here for 6 years, and volunteers has always been something that has been necessary. 8 hours is nothing, especially right now with my daughter being in 5th grade for science camp. That's a little fundraiser, and then I can't volunteer anymore, so that means I can't help raise money for my daughter to go to camp. To me, that 8 hours is not enough. So we do need maybe to revisit that and add either 8 hours, is it only for a certain thing? Is it for the school? What are conditions? I ask that it's revisited. As we know, we do need volunteers. And that's what this school is based on, is volunteers. I don't know if it's a safety thing. If it is, then it has to be known. This is the reason why these 8 hours are being implemented. Not just, it's 8 hours. There has to be a reason why, And I do ask that that is revisited. And that's just my big concern. 8 hours is not enough. And the parents that continue to volunteer, that's completely done. And as we know, it's the same parents volunteering over and over. And once your 8 hours are up, who's going to volunteer? We're not going to have anybody else. And so that's where things start falling through the cracks. And I just think that we need to second think that before it's made a decision that it's permanent. Thank you guys. Please don't applaud for me.
My name is Amanda Hernandez, and I have a kindergartner here, and she loves her teacher, she loves her class, she loves school, but she only sees kindergarten things, right? About the volunteer hours, I'm looking forward to when my son can go to transitional kinder, and I can have more time with my daughter in her class. I can have more time doing whatever's necessary around the school, at both here and wherever he may go. And I'm a stay-at-home mom, and I don't plan on being a stay-at-home mom forever, so I'd like to just get the most out of being home with them, So I would like to just, for you guys to revisit the 8-hour policy a month. And also I would hate to think that it's because certain people are being targeted, because certain people volunteer more than 8 hours. So I hope that you're not basing this on just one family when there's so many families. And also I just want to go towards like everyone else is saying, my daughter loves the school. There's a sense of community within the parents that I love. I see that there's activities that maybe OCC puts on that I love. But as far, other than that, there's really nothing more. My daughter is excelling in her class, I believe because she is like one of the firstborn in her class, And then, every month there's another 5-year-old being put into her class, and I'm thinking, okay, my daughter is going on 7 in September. And these kids who are just turning 5 are being thrown into her class just so they can have maybe more income for the child that's 5 years old, And I just don't think it's fair to the child coming in. It's not fair to my child either. So maybe we could revisit the end dates, is when the child could enter a classroom after it's already been, one entered last month, I just think it's fair to my child. I want her to excel and learn. I don't want, and it's not fair to the teachers either to have to go and reteach certain things for certain children. And my child's over here maybe getting paperwork, to try and keep her busy, and then the other children are just kind of there learning. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Public comment? Okay, thank you. Let's see. Move on to the next item here, closed session. There's nothing to report from our closed session. Let's see, adoption of the agenda. Everyone had a chance to review the agenda, right? Can I get a motion to approve the agenda as presented? So moved. Do we have a second? Seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Thank you. Approved. Let's go on to the minutes. We have minutes from June 20th of 2017, June 23rd to the 25th of 17, and January 29th of 18, and February 1st of 2018. Are there any questions, comments about the minutes? Can I get a motion to approve the minutes? Well, this is not open for public comments. Yeah, so we need to get these approved and then. All right, thank you. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes as presented? Can I get a second? Okay. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Okay. Approved. What is your comment?
My comment is that the minutes for June it's just the agenda items. I don't see any comments or any notes on the actual minutes or things as such. I know Erica was taking notes during the board retreat, so I don't know how we can approve minutes that don't reflect any minutes. I mean, there was things discussed there that were noted, like when Juan said that he hadn't filed his Form 700 for the last 5 years, and then Pete said that. So I don't understand how we can have minutes that actually don't reflect the minutes. So that's a concern.
Okay, thanks for your comment.
I think people agree.
Let's move move on to business services and presentations. We have financial reports, and we're so lucky today to have live in person Donna Strong to provide us the information. So, Donna, this is the time that we would call you to be here.
I have everything on my computer, so let me give it a try.
Juanita, there's a part here. Do you want to come?
Yeah.
Plugged in. Oh, yeah.
Pretty close. Forget, I have to have the microphone. I'm Donna Strong. Our company, Administrative Resources Inc. We are service providers for charter schools. We're a small company. We have 14 charter schools and we've been in business since 2004. And we have no audit exceptions in all those years. So that's an important point, I think, to bring out. We've been with Oasis since 8-9. We were 8-9. So we'll start with the balance sheet, like we usually do. Do you have the balance sheet ready? Okay, do you have the balance sheet ready? I'm sorry, I'm not a public speaker. I'm an accountant. All right, so we'll start with the balance sheet. Are you ready? That's okay.
What happens when we go from paper to...
I know, believe me, this is, in my office, it looks like paper everywhere. Okay, so at the end of January, cash in all banks are $1,229,791. The accounts receivable for 97557, that was paid in February. That's the ongoing medical payment for Mike Roberts that he pays first of the next month or then the next month. The employee receivable is a receivable that was from one of the employees at the beginning of the year that's getting paid back over the course of the year. Will be paid back by June 30th as the summer 125. That is the July premium that is paid by the school. All of the employees' July premium is paid by the school because they do not get a check in that month. They just get their summer pay. So the school pays the premium and then the employees pay it back over the course of the next year. The due from grantor government IDEA money, that's the federal federal funding for special ed that comes from the Sonoma SELPA, and hopefully it will be here shortly. I talked to Deb recently. Deb
Malone Larson at the Sonoma Cell Fund. She said they still haven't received it, but hopefully it will be within the next month or so. The prepaid expenses that are on there, let me get over to that prepaid worksheet. Let's see, 12,000 of it, 10,000 is the lease deposit, 2,114 is utility, 1156.50 is advertising that will expense in September of 18. $82 of it is an overpayment that will be expensed in February. And then there's a legal retainer on there that will be expensed as used. And then a field trip for $825 that will be expensed in March. So those are the prepaid expenses on there. I'll get back to the balance sheet again here. So that's it for the assets. Do you have any questions on any of the assets? No? Okay. The liabilities are the standard state unemployment that gets paid quarterly. Workers' comp, that is, we use the one account as the kind of the holding account for workers' comp. The payments that are made flow through that account, and then every payroll that we book, we estimate what the workers' comp expense will be based on their wages. That flows through there at the end of the year. Then we know whether the school owes money at the end of the year, whether they haven't paid enough premium and they're going to owe some, or whether they've overpaid the premium and they'll get a refund back the next year. The 1/6 withholding, that's the teacher's summer pay that will be paid out in July. The Transamerica and the health premium payable, those both will clear out in February. Any questions on any of those?
Can you explain the Mike Roberts thing?
Well, he's on the medical policy, but he has to pay his own premium.
Okay.
So he gets, at the time that we pay the bill, we set up a receivable for Mike, and then he cuts a check. So it clears out every month. There was a little bit of carryover because the premium increased, and so then Mike caught up with it the following month. Okay. But he catches it up every month. Yeah. Any other questions? No? Okay. Let's go on to the income statement then. We'll get over to the income statement. Okay. Now, the way we do the second interim is the second interim budget is based on actuals to date through January. So when we go through the January statements, if you see overages and expenses or whatever, those get addressed at second interim. So we'll just kind of run through the numbers, but I think it means more when you go through the second interim. All of the revenues, all of the state revenues, they're all paid through January according to the state schedules. Oasis has already received their first payments for Title I and Title II this year. And as with their mandated costs, the block grant, the discretionary grant, state lottery, those were all paid according to the state schedule. And they also got their first SB 740 payment for the year. Donations are a little bit over what was budgeted and other local revenues. Let's see, fundraisers. Well, again, I think it's better to discuss local revenues when we're discussing the second interim. Teacher salaries, those are all, they should be about 50% right now, and that's where they are. They're about 52% for certificated and about 52% for classified. So they're running very close to what was budgeted at first interim, as are the employee benefits. Textbooks, everything is really fairly close within budget. Very little is over budget, and again, those were addressed at second interim. There aren't any expenses that I can see that are not within budget or not within reason at this point. So, do you see anything, do you have any questions on any of these items?
No, I don't.
Okay, all right.
Normally it's me, so.
Yes, I know, so that's why I was looking at you.
I'm looking though.
So if you don't have any questions, do you want to move on to the second interim?
Yes.
Okay, let's do that. So I think that's what's most meaningful, and I think that's what we need to discuss. Because as you can see, if you look at the July 1 budget, we estimated 250 for enrollment and 248 for ADA, and that was based on last year. Their ADA at the end of the year was excellent because of the Saturday Academy. They had success with the Saturday Academy, and they had a 99% ADA rate, which is pretty much unheard of. So they finished last year very well, and we thought that going into this year that would happen, so that's how July 1 was budgeted. As you can see, it went from 250 to 247 at first interim, and now down to 240 at second interim. And the ADA has gone from 98% down to 93.75%, which is, as you'll see from the bottom line, that's not a good situation to be in. And because of that, next year was budgeted at 245 with the ADA only 92% of 225, which really hurts the school, money-wise. So, no opinion, just explain the dollars and cents. For the revenues, you can see that the LCFF revenue, the estimate went from $2,298,000 July 1st, now we're down to $2,097,000 at second interim, which is probably a pretty close. Well, the P1 looked good, so we'll have to wait and see how the P2 plays out. Hopefully the P1 was strong enough to offset what's going to happen at P2. It won't.
When is the P2?
That's your final attendance at the end of the year. Yeah, but your funding for the entire year is based on P2. So, it depends on what happens between P1 and P2. We're not really going to know until we get the final. Now, one important thing also to bear in mind is the SB 740 funding. That's the funding that you get from the state for your classroom. It was $750 per student. Now it's $1,117 per student. The issue with that, though, is they oversubscribed. They had too many schools applying this year, and they don't have enough money to go around. So now they're saying they're not going to get the 1,117. They're estimating they're only going to get between 75 and 80%. Probably not 80% from what I talked to them at the CSFA office, and it's probably going to be closer to 75%. So that's hurting also. As you can see, at the beginning of the year it was estimated 188, now it's at 141. There's another big hit for the school.
When should we receive payment for that? Next year?
No, you get, no, fortunately that's gone away.
Okay.
And it's on schedule.
Okay.
So they've already gotten the first payment, and they'll get another payment probably.
So we're not behind like we've been.
No,
Okay.
I don't think that'll happen again because the CSFA, they've got a pretty good handle on things.
Cool.
So I don't think that'll happen. So they'll get another payment in April, which should be another 25% of the estimate, and they'll get the final probably by September, I'm going to say. Yeah, that's going well now.
The projection was based on the $1,000 or on the 800?
The original projection was based on the 1,000, but then we had to. It didn't take very long for them to come out and say, no, you're not going to get it. We were just kidding you. So those were the big hits on your revenue right there. your local revenues, they're actually coming in pretty good. The difference between first interim and second interim, the after-school revenue is coming in very well this year. So that was increased. The budget was at $43,000, but they've already collected $42,000 through January. So that budget was increased to $58,000, which they should meet that by the end of the year. We left the other revenues the same, other than the local revenue, because it had been budgeted at $2,000 and we've already collected $5,700, so we increased that to $7,000. So bottom line is the total revenues that we estimated at July 1 were $2,008,000. Now they're down to $2,006,000. Big hit. And that's, it's all about ADA, enrollment and ADA. If you don't have the students, you're not going to have the revenue to cover your costs. So Juanita did make some budget cuts because of that. There were, now in the certificated arena, that was really, what we do when we budget the salaries is at July 1, we project what we think they will get paid for the entire year based on their salary. Then we come through and every month we drop in the actual numbers. What do they actually get paid? So then at first interim, we reforecast based on what's been paid to date, what we think will be paid through the end. We come through and do that same thing again, first interim. We have actuals for January, we forecast through February. So based on the actuals through January and the forecast through February, the salaries will be less than we anticipated at the beginning. So they went down about $30,000 for certificated salaries. Now one of those is because the position is, let's see, I think that's the reading specialist, isn't that one that will not? Yeah, that position won't be filled when, I guess that's going to be eliminated in April, and that position will be refilled.
That is correct. This person is moving out of the area. That position will not be refilled. The students will be provided services within the current services that we were provided by other staff members.
So the classified salaries, they went down slightly, but not significantly. There were really no big changes. It's just that we estimate that they're going to work a certain FTE, and if they don't work that full FTE through the year, then by default their total gross wages will be less than what we anticipated. There aren't any other real big changes in the salaries. Other than, let's see, it looks like the after-school assistants went down a little bit. And then employee benefits. Those are directly linked, because of the way we have the salary worksheet set up, the benefits are directly linked to the projected salaries. So those are going to adjust as the salaries adjust. For textbooks, those were reduced $3,000. Instructional materials were reduced $3,000. Supplies in stores, those were increased a little bit, but that's based on actual, really it's the custodial supplies that increased that. The capitalized equipment's about the same. Travel and conferences are remaining the same, and dues and memberships are a little bit higher, but not anything significant. Operating and housekeeping are the same. Rentals and leases, it looks like at this time of the year, the decision was made that there probably won't be, hopefully, a lot for building repair or building maintenance through the end of the year, so those two items will decrease. For the other outside operating costs, they're pretty much the same. We didn't make a lot of change there. So they're slightly higher, but that's Looks like there's some board development expense in there and professional development expenses in there. So that increased it a little bit. Communications had to go up a little bit because the internet services were a little bit more than anticipated. The sites and improvement of the sites, the thing to bear in mind with those is those will be capitalized at the end of the year, so those are a cash item. They're not an income statement item. But they are budgeted to, let's see, for the playground structure, which is still in the works, right? Oh, yeah. And then the parking lot was sealed and striped. And then for the improvement of the buildings, carpeting was put in, and there's a kitchen remodel in the works. And then capitalized equipment, that's, there were 30 Chromebooks bought for the students, so those will since they were purchased in a lot, we can capitalize those at the end of the year. So the bottom line is that July 1st, we thought there would probably be a small net increase of about $26,000. First interim, because of the drop in enrollment, and ADA specific, not so much the enrollment, it was the ADA that just wasn't keeping up with the enrollment. So that caused the net decrease. Now, we were estimating the net decrease about $131,000, and now we're about $136,000. So that's, that's cash out of the bank. That means there won't be enough revenue to cover the expenses for this year, and that will come out of the fund balance. So, are there any questions on that?
Can everyone hear me? I have my mic on. Can everyone hear the back? Can you just okay, just want to make sure. So we are trying to offer Saturday Academy also during professional development days to make up for some of the ADA. A lot of sickness going around. I don't know if it has hit other districts. Certainly has hit us. Children being out sick. So we're offering at least one Saturday a month, plus any professional development day. That's all for students. We're offering that so they can make up their absences. Excuse or excuse. They can make it up. We're also trying to do independent study packets for those students that are usually out for more than a day, so that we can recoup that as well. So we're doing everything we can within what's permitted to recoup some of that lost ADA.
Have you had any success with the Saturday Academy?
Yes, the last one was on the 16th of March, and we had 28 students show up.
Oh, good. That's wonderful.
February, is that what? Oh, sorry. Well, the next one will be March 16th, though. We do have one on March 16th, which is scheduled all of those recently. So February 16th, and another one on March 3rd and March 16th. 2 more, Saturday and Sunday. So hopefully that will help to bring that up.
Question here?
What is that? What's the amount that we're losing on those 10?
On the students?
Yes.
Well, you can figure between 8,000 and 9,000 a student. But I've got your difference between first and second interim for your LCFF funding is $122,600.
And Donna, you and I also talked about ongoing expenses moving forward. So we'll talk about it later. But certainly we have ongoing expenses that we have to reconsider for next year. As far as how we're going to budget, knowing that we may not be able to keep our high ADA as we used to. So we'll talk about it in a minute.
Any questions for Donna on the second interim? So we have from now until May to try to reduce some of that.
We have actually the second interim is the second P2 report is due after spring break. Is that right, Erika? And then we do a final end of the year report in June.
3 weeks.
Yeah, because they go on spring break the last week of March. Right. So we go on spring break the last week of March, and then the report after we come back, and then we do the end of the year report for attendance, and that's in June.
Now, the end of the year report, though, the annual ADA, that gets adjusted the next February. It doesn't, you don't realize it within that year. It will be the following February as a prior year computation, recomputation, okay? So, and basically what happens there is, you know, there's a certain amount of LCFF funding, and a portion of it is in lieu. If you get more in lieu, you're gonna get less state aid. If you get more state aid, you're gonna get less in lieu. So if they give you more state aid, you're gonna have an adjustment, you'll owe the district the extra in lieu. So it's kind of a balancing act the following February. The real dollars are at PT. That's where your funding is coming from.
Are you able to make a projection, how many Saturday account, or how many of those accounts can you possibly?
Possibly could be 2 a month. We're doing 2 a month.
So
realistic.
literally two left. Is that realistic?
2 left for March, and then 2 for April, and then 2 for May.
2 for March, and then you have the last week of March, the first week of spring break for 4 days. The first 4 days of spring break, you're gonna offer.
Okay.
Then we have 6.
So can we work on a projection to, I think it's always easier to say, this is how much we can recoup with the time that we have left. If we really push for the alternative, yeah.
I agree.
Yes.
So we're gonna offer,
And it is not time right now, I'm just throwing it out as, can we work together on putting something to sort of strive for?
Sure.
For the next whatever, 4 or 5.
so we'll have 6 days, potential 6 days to make up ADA. That's March 3rd, March 16th, and then the first 4 days of spring break. And we're hoping to get at least 25 students in each of those sessions. So I guess what I was asking is, can we project how much we can recoup in those 6 days multiplied by 25? If we get 25 at least in attendance.
Well, the ADA is cumulative over the course of the year, so you can't just say just
Right,
because
I'm trying to.
I'd have to work with Erica.
Okay.
We could do some brainstorming and see what we can come up with. Sure, I can come up with the dollars. I just,
Right.
you know.
And then the logistics of how we get to that will be
Right.
right here.
Yes. Yes. Certainly we can do that. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yes. Now, did you want to go over the projections, or do you want to wait for 18, 19, 19, 20, or do you want to wait and do that in the preliminary July one? It's your choice.
You guys want to hear more numbers?
Yeah, that's a conversation in itself,
Yeah.
a very serious one, and I'd like to spend some time.
Yeah, I'd rather we not talk about it now,
Okay.
and we get some time to.
The one thing I do want to point out is that the fund balance is not for ongoing expenditures. I think everyone needs to be real clear on that it is not for ongoing expenditures. You cannot use that. I don't want to say you cannot, but it is not recommended to use your fund balance for salaries or benefits or anything ongoing. Because what will happen is, so you use a chunk of it next year to pay for your salaries. Then the next year and the next year, at some point, you will have no fund balance left. You will have no money in the bank. And that you'll have these ongoing expenditures that you don't have money to cover.
The recommendation is to cut where we can during that.
Just at least stay neutral. At least stay as close to positive as you can. I realize increases are necessary. That's the only way you're going to keep good staff. But there are alternatives for the other salary pieces, the other salaries and wages that can be addressed. We'll just put it that way. Okay. And also, another thing that needs to be very clear is there will be another recession. That's a given. And the last recession, the state held back up to 60% of the state aid, and the schools, charter schools, cannot just go down to the county treasury and get the money out. They have to borrow it. And the charters that were not approved and did not have a fund balance had to factor their receivables, and it cost about 25% of their receivables to factor them. That's a waste of money. So everyone needs to keep that in mind. There's a reason why there's a fund balance. Yeah, and I will keep saying it, you know. I saw a charter have to factor their receivables. What a waste of money. that's money that could have been used for instructional supplies or any number of things. So, you know, it's important.
So Donna, can you stay for the conversation later this evening?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. All right, thank you.
Donna.
Stand in front of them.
That was the worst part. I'm behind the scenes.
Okay, let's move on to the next item, OCC, the OCC update. Yeah.
Oh my God, can you guys hear me? Okay. Okay, so, let's see. The OCC bylaws have been sent to Augustine and Juanita. I know it was last minute again. I'm working long hours and I'm extremely tired, but they're in your guys' hands. So, yes, that's done. I just want to let everybody know there. And then when we get to that, I'll discuss. I don't know. Should I discuss it now or no? Is that part of it? Should I?
Yeah.
Bylaws?
The next item is the draft of the OCC bylaws. So if you wanted.
Yeah, I just want to say, so like the bank account information, obviously there's like a bunch of like lines, and that's because we have to approve this first. The bylaws have to be approved before we can open a bank account. So that's just there because that's where the bank account info is going to go once we have it. And then we did put that we are adopting the conflict of interest policy like the youth board, so it'll be the same thing, and I understand that's like 14 pages long. So I don't have that, and I wasn't going to attach 14 pages to it, but that is part of our bylaws. Okay, so that's that. And then, so an update on OCC stuff. So on our last meeting, yes. Oh, I'm sorry.
So this has already gone through.
So this started with the original, and then the meetings we've had, and then OCC input, then Juanita and Jennifer's input, then it went back to OCC, and then went back for me physically being in a room speaking to Jennifer and taking her input, and then going and making these. So these should be A-okay. Okay. Hopefully you think so too. Don't make me write them again. It's been a long time, so I'm hoping, they're good. Okay. So then OCC voted for all the monies collected at the gala for each class basket to go back to each class so that they can use for whatever it is necessary. I know in the past OCC had asked the classes to put a basket, a themed basket, and then OCC would keep that money. However, I think that they should go back to the class. So I brought it up to the OCC members and we all voted, and everybody said yes, each class should get the money that was raised from their specific basket, and the teachers can use it whether it's the trip or anything for the kids that they may need. Okay? So September 22nd was voted as the new camp out date, so I know I need to get that information out as far as like making sure that we book it, but that was voted on, and so we're gonna have that. I attended the all-family meeting with Juanita, and we had a couple presentations. We had a couple new parents there, so they did have a couple questions. I spoke briefly about the gala, the boxland, the field day, and the barbecue. And I got to speak briefly with those new parents, and they're pretty excited about that stuff. And then this Thursday will be the evening assembly, and I know the teachers already talked to some of the parents. Did we mention evening assembly last time? Are you guys aware what it is? Yes? Okay, I wasn't sure. Sorry. Yes, everybody?
Everyone know what it is?
Nobody has questions on evening assembly?
You want to just...
Okay, so evening assembly. So what it is, as a lot of parents do work, they can't come every Wednesday to see their child perform when it is their turn. So the communications team decided that wouldn't it be awesome to also incorporate some community building. And so if the parents' children have, within that month, done the performance on a Wednesday, then those classes would be invited to come back and those kids to re-perform at nighttime, and then the parents can come and invite their families, and then they can see their child since they weren't able to. And the last one that we had, there was so many people and so much food, and it was really awesome, and people were happy that we did that, and they were excited, and they were very thankful, because again, a lot of people work and they can't come in the mornings. So we're doing that again, and that'll be this Thursday. And so whoever's classes are performing, they've already gotten a phone call. I only know because I got one. And then, let's see, the all-family dance date was moved to April 27th instead of April 20th. And that was voted on also on our OCC meeting. The lunch assessment that was asked for us to do at the alignment meeting is actually being worked on. We got Teacher Josie who started it, and then it's come to me, and then I have a couple of the parents that are going to give some input on it. And so we're hoping we have that by the next meeting to present. And that's it. That's all I have. Any questions?
Dance?
Yes.
Did you talk about the dance?
So the all-family dance?
Yes.
Oh, so the all-family dance is coming. That is...
Is there one for the...
Oh, the after-school dance. I can talk about that one. Yeah, so that's not my dance, but it was awesome. After school did a great job. They actually decorated. They took time. There was a lot of people that night. The kids ran for Duchess, Duke, Princess, Prince, King, Queen, even the teachers. And it was really nice to see the community. Kids were dancing, parents were dancing, the food was awesome, everybody looked so nice dressed up, and the pictures, kids were having fun. And so I think that after school did an awesome job with that, and that was a great, great dance. And I hope that we can have that every year because I enjoyed it myself, and I know other parents did too. So, yeah, it was sold out. I think they only sold limited tickets. But it was a good turnout too. Yeah.
Thank you.
And any other questions? Anybody else have questions? Okay. Thank you guys. Oh, do I have to say for the bylaws?
No,
Okay.
unless there's any questions.
Do you guys have questions on the bylaws? I want to sit down and then come back.
If you and Jennifer beat it up.
Yeah, we actually did. We sat there and we went literally just like, okay, this on the line, and just, we discussed some stuff, so.
And it's a living document, so it can be reviewed and revised as needed, right?
Yes, it can be.
Approved and so on.
Yeah, and it's going to need to be because of the bank information. So it's not like we can just say this is what's it, there's no bank information. That needs to be added in there too. So it will be again revised once these get approved, we go to the bank, open that, then it'll be added onto here. And so then again, it'll be presented. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you guys.
Okay, thank you. The next item is we have a proposal from Evergreen Associates to conduct an academic program review, the current charter. So Juanita, you have a...
Yes, I've asked Evergreen Associates. Evergreen Associates has been working with Oasis for the past several years, helping us with different projects. One of the biggest projects for Oasis was the charter renewal, and this company helped us through that process. So I asked Evergreen Associates if they would be interested in helping us to conduct an academic program review and submit a proposal. And so they have, and I submitted that, and it should be there as an attachment. Okay. And I believe the overall total proposal is $7,500, if I'm not mistaken, if I remember correctly, because I got, let's see. Let's scroll down to the bottom, but I believe it was $7,500. I'm not wrong. It never ends, I know. We had to print all of these documents. It would be quite an expense. I know. Down at the bottom? Probably down at the bottom. Let's keep scrolling down. Right here. Right there it should be.
Okay.
What page number?
I'm on page 20.
What page?
Right after the budget, I have the visitors policy, the volunteer policy. That's what I have. It's probably the way at the bottom. What happens with our attachments is the program allows you to attach up to 12 documents, and then after that, it doesn't allow you to do that. So if you have 13, you can only do 12, and then the 13 has to be separate. So this time we have to do a separate attachment to the attachment because of the amount of attachments. We have it. Because I have 3 other. Oh.
Sorry, it was 166 pages, so I had to work it as much as I could.
Yeah, and we haven't figured out how to add more than 12 attachments that amount to more than 160 pages long. So I'm sure there's a way. It's just giving us a limit. Oh, here it is. Yeah. Okay. My mouse, it's not letting me. Yeah, Evergreen Associates, it's page 14 of 26. It's the 3rd attachment. Okay, we'll find a way soon, hopefully, with the newest technology as it keeps changing and getting better, so we can add as many attachments. So, yeah.
So they'll come and look at our charter, they know about the charter.
Yes, correct.
They'll look at our educational programs compared to what we wrote in the charter.
Yes.
Do an analysis, provide us feedback.
Yes, that is correct.
That's what it is.
So they come and do classroom visits. They also talk to staff members. It's not an interview, it's more of a, I have questions for you about blah, blah, blah. And then they do a write-up, a report, and they present that to the board and to administration so that they can see based on the charter and based on their findings where we need to make changes or improve our programs to be in full alignment with the law and with the charter. So yes, the answer is yes, they will do that.
Will they work with our consultant that we currently have?
Actually, yes. They will work with Ed in looking at the data, student data, and teacher professional development and all of that. They would have to work in collaboration with Ed and Anais, who's helping us with our English language development plan. So the answer will be yes. And then we also have a data analyst who is working with Ed or was working with Ed and has some information. So she would also be in contact with them to make sure that she gets the information she needs from Ed, Anais, and this data analyst person, and she needs to go back and do that in-depth review. So the answer is yes. And it comes to us as in a report form with recommendations and suggestions on what to improve and what areas to improve on.
Any questions from the board on that item? No? Do you have a comment?
Like Pete would say, it's me again. Yes, I do. So Evergreen Associates was the firm that we hired when we were trying to get our charter petition renewal. And as you know, we actually failed to meet the requirements for our charter petition renewal regarding academics. So that was one of the areas that we failed. And considering that they were the ones who were helping us get our charter renewal, first I'd ask, like I ask all the time, do we get more than one company? Second, if we're going to use the same company that failed us 4 years ago or 3 years ago to analyze us again, what's the point of that? So, you know, as Juanita stated before, the reason we got our charter renewal was not because we met our conditions, but because of relationships and connections. So I just think that we need to find more options than one person, because I'm sure Jen can verify, we didn't meet our charter requirements, especially in education. We're a public school, we should meet our education requirements. And finding the right company to get us back on track, or to do an in-depth analysis, who maybe has a better track record than Evergreen Associates. I think it's the responsible thing for the board and the best thing for the kids.
Thank you. Okay, let's move on to 6.3, proposal some ongoing board development.
Is that in the same attachment, or AP's proposal? We were getting them at different times, so we were trying to look.
So maybe I can discuss a little bit about this item.
Yes, okay.
So in talking to Juanita, every board has board development to grow as a board and to make sure that the work that we're doing is done correctly. And so I suggested that we look for someone who could provide us with some guidance, topics and so on for board development. So that's where that came from, but there's a proposal from JP O'Connor, and he's the...
She's an expert on board development. She's the one who prepared and presented the board retreat on June 23rd to the 25th, 2017. So, and she's retired, so she's doing this as a retired expert in the field. And so I asked for a proposal from her to assist the board in growing and developing as a board, as we have new board members on the board, 3 new ones, so I'm sure that we're always going to be in need of assistance to make sure that we understand the responsibilities of the board and what we need to do as a board to grow. It's there, I know it is.
500 pages, and it looks so much for moving to
Electronic, I'm sorry, I know, it's just so many documents that they're being added now, and so we're printing packets of hundreds of pages in the past. So we're hoping to streamline things, and has become a little more complicated than we thought. Let's see it here. I'm sure it's here. I know she sent it to us. Can people find it in their computer or no? Are you still, you can't find it? No? I don't know why. I'm looking.
Okay, let's postpone that for now.
Let's postpone that, I can't find it, but I know she sent it to us.
And we'll get back to it as soon as we find that document. And if not, we'll postpone it for
Postpone it to the next meeting.
the next meeting. So for now, let's just, Erica, you look for it? Okay, thank you. So let's move to the next item until we find that document. Proposed Oasis volunteer policy. So everyone can.
That one is there, it's right after the budget, it says you sent 22718, and it is after the budget item. So that would be page 13 of 44. Classroom and school volunteer policy. So page 44 of, 13 of 44. There is Spanish copies of this policy right up here in the front. So if anybody needs a Spanish copy of the classroom and school volunteer policy and the other policy as well, It's stapled here in the front. Any parent, please come and grab one.
Sorry, Janine, it's only in Spanish.
No English?
I requested it, but they didn't have time to do it.
Well, Spanish isn't good.
There should be one of the Chromebooks.
There's a Chromebook here in the front.
Chromebook right there.
There's a Chromebook right here.
Yep, good, thank you.
So the Spanish and English versions will be posted on Parent Square soon. And it has been sent to the OCC, so it will be on the agenda for the next meeting. And also it has been distributed to the staff, and it was briefly discussed during the staff meeting, during the last staff meeting. We need to have more conversations, of course. This is only the first draft as proposed by our legal counsel. And we have to take into consideration community input. So Oasis has never had a volunteer policy. We always welcome families to volunteer, and that is correct. We had a few coffee mingles, and I'm always asking parents to please volunteer, please come and help us. We need your assistance. And we do need to have something more formalized. It is time. Oasis is now 16, almost 17 years old. And as Jane says, as growing pains, as we mature, there's things that need to, new things that need to be in place, just like for the board, our new policies that have been implemented recently, such as the conflict of interest code and a few other things that we have updated as well. So this is an effort to do that, to formalize our systems and to have systems in place that can put structure and things in place. So we have two. We have the classroom and school policy, volunteer policy. That's one. And then we have the conditions for classroom and school visitation and removal policy as well. So there's those two at this time. And like I said, the staff has reviewed it, the OCC has not, and they will at the next meeting. And so it will be distributed to the community via Parent Square. This will not be posted online, as at this time it's not necessary until it's approved by the board. We do need family community input, and I do appreciate that. I took notes of that, and that will be taken into consideration. This is a draft. This is not a final copy. This is not the proposal to be approved tonight, and it is only a draft because we need the community to tell us what their needs, what the needs are, so that we can then make new changes and bring it back. It takes a few meetings and input from everyone before we can have a final copy, because it affects the families, the staff, the students, who are the most important for all of us. So none of us, I'm sure, are going to make any decisions until we have had input from every stakeholder in that this might affect. So again, it's the first draft. I did bring it to the staff, and I just want to share a little bit about what they said. They also asked to increase the 8 hours per month, for that to be more than 8. One idea was to make it 10, but it doesn't have to be 10, but that was one suggestion they had. They also suggested if we can differentiate classroom assistance from field trips, that we can have those two distinct volunteer opportunities for parents. Or other events, for instance, the gala. That's a really good example of how much time people put in, and the 8 hours will go right there in one evening, helping with the gala. And so definitely, like I can see Janine in the back saying, I put together the baskets. It takes me more than 8 hours to put together the baskets for the gala.
That's a 14-hour day for me.
Yes, and we appreciate it, and we know that. And we thank you for all of that time that you put in. And definitely, 8 hours would not be sufficient for what is being proposed.
On top of that, it's all the hours I put in before putting the baskets together.
Yes, of course, yes, absolutely. So no, that's a reasonable request is to increase the hours. The other one, like I said, is to make distinction between classroom assistants or school assistants, like on-campus assistants, field trips, and other special events. So that is also being taken into consideration. Any questions from the board?
Well, I mean, my first comment is that this speaks to just hours or it doesn't speak to the types of volunteerism that is needed in the classroom, or when you walk into the classroom, what type of volunteer activities. Yeah, so I think I mean, if I was a teacher, I would like to see something more clarity in a policy like that versus hours. Because that, you know what I mean? I'm just saying, in terms of what I would like to see. If I was a parent and I'm gonna come into the classroom, I'd like to know some guidelines as to what I'm going to be able to volunteer in the classroom. Versus, don't tell me how many hours I'm going to, I'm speaking out loud as a parent.
The next parent.
Well, from this school, but I'm still a parent, and a child is somewhere.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's my comment. I don't think it says anything.
It doesn't say anything about the different types of activities that they can do. Definitely, that could be something that could be added as far as the different activities that the volunteers
And I see
can do.
that's why there's the need to communicate with the teacher, and almost the need of why you need 48 hours, because you need to sort of prep for a parent that's going to be in the classroom, volunteering and providing feedback and whatever it is that they're going to be doing.
Right.
There. So I mean, I do see that, but I think it needs to have a little more clarity as to the do's and don'ts
Right.
of volunteers in certain activities throughout the school.
And that would then have to be the staff getting together and coming up with that list of things that they need volunteers for. On another note regarding the volunteer piece, we did delete a few things that were suggested by the attorney, Mike, to give me feedback in advance. So we went ahead and deleted some of those things that we thought, we really don't need to know these things that are necessary. The fingerprinting piece, I know that was going to be brought up as well. And in every school setting, if any volunteer is going to work with students unsupervised from any Oasis staff member, they have to be fingerprinted. And if anybody can volunteer, but they have to be, if they're not fingerprinted and we don't have clearance, then they have to be supervised by an Oasis staff member. They can't be with students unsupervised. It's for the safety of our children. And I don't see us doing it any other way. I understand that there are families out there that may not be able to get fingerprinted and get clearance via the FBI or any of these other entities that give us clearance. However, like I said, it's for the safety of our children, so they can still volunteer. They have to be supervised by one of our staff members who are fingerprinted. But if they are hoping to be a chaperone and be with a group of students unsupervised, or if they're hoping to come in and work with a small group of students unsupervised, or accompany a child, those don't go in the restroom, but if they have to be out of sight, we want them to be fingerprinted and to have clearance for that. It's for the safety of our children, I'll repeat.
Are there any comments from the board?
I don't like it. Sorry, I just don't like it. My son went here for 9 years, and being that I was a parent and I spent countless hours here, all of us parents back then, we did a good job in raising our kids. Most of our kids are in college now. And it was based on the philosophy where we had to do 40 hours and 60 hours until San Clemente got it thrown out for volunteer hours. Every year we compiled a list of how many hours we volunteered, and I think we actually turned it into ALSAL back then to show how many hours of pre-service went into it. So I don't know, fingerprinting I'm all for, but this document's too arbitrary for me. Yeah, it's too vague. That's my opinion.
volunteered at Oasis as a parent, chaperoning, driving kids over to field trips, of course my daughter included, and I had to be fingerprinted, and if my daughter was going to go in the vehicle with someone else whom I do not know, but is a parent of another child, I as a mother wouldn't allow her if that person was not fingerprinted. We have so many people out there that we, as we see each other, don't know what their background is. And I would not allow my child to sit in a vehicle of somebody I do not know that they are safe or that my daughter's going to be safe, because they are out for the entire day that they're supposed to be in school. As one of the mothers said, you know, her daughter went on a field trip with somebody she doesn't even know. So then there again, I'm all for fingerprinting. I was fingerprinted. I would expect somebody else that is driving my child to some other place that I will not have visual control or supervision of. I would want that parent fingerprinted, and I don't see how another parent would want that for the safety of their child. That's my perspective.
Any comments from the board? Okay. Comments from the audience? Can you please come to the podium? Thank you.
So you were talking about like the teachers like having something ready like for the parents to do. My son is in Teacher Marguerite's class, and she does something the week before. She puts a list up here of what she needs Monday in the morning, afternoon, Tuesday, same thing, usually nothing Wednesday, same thing Thursday, and then she'll have at the bottom projects for you to take home and do and bring back. She also has just extra things that she needs done, and usually she starts Monday. By Friday, usually there's maybe one or two parents, maybe, and then I end up filling it up Friday. But that's for the following week, and that has worked really well since the beginning of the year. That might be something the teachers would want to do all the way around, is keep the clipboard in front of them. It works really well.
That's what we used to do at the old school.
Yeah, it works.
Everybody's had a job.
And usually Friday, I'm like, okay, empty slots.
Yeah.
Thank you for your comment.
Well, I want to know who came up with 8 hours. Where did that number come from? It reminds me of the anti-nippling policy. I'm going to read this. This is from our SARC report that just came out on January 24th. I'm assuming Juanita wrote it. It says, families are asked to select a family participation plan that best meets their needs. They can also customize their plan at any time during the school year. Family participation at any level is crucial to the success of the school's vision and mission. Community members are encouraged to share their expertise and creativity by bringing forward new ideas and possibilities to the school. Oasis families have an opportunity to give input in the future direction of the school. An area of focus is straighten our positive school climate and culture. At the same time, increase family participation. We will accomplish this by establishing a strong, open communication with families and the community at large. Excuse me. Blah, blah, blah. Skipping student council. The increase of family participation requirements and implementation of the accountability system will work towards accomplishing these goals. Talks about a family liaison, which now I understand we're not going to have anymore. However, even though we strongly encourage family participation, volunteer is not a condition of admission, enrollment, and different things. So this was written less than a month ago. The reality is, parents, this school is based on parents helping educate their children. So this policy that Pete said it's ridiculous. I think it discriminates. Of course, we want fingerprinted safety when you're alone. But I think we need to be more careful when we issue policies like this, because they're inflammatory. You don't just start saying things. Okay, so who's going to do this volunteer assignment? Who's going to create that? And then when we huh?
Oh, yes. Yeah, 10 seconds left.
No, of course. All right, thank you. All I was saying is, I'm not sure why we would need to get permission from Juanita to volunteer. Don't we want our parents here?
Thank you for your comments. Any other comments from the
I just wanted to say that I do think and I feel very strongly about the fingerprinting because some parents can't be here all the time and I wouldn't want somebody to be with my child and they're not fingerprinted. So I'm all for the fingerprinting, especially because, you know, I know that we have that policy where if you're not fingerprinted, you don't have car insurance, you don't have registration, you're not driving anybody else but your own child. So I'm all for that. And just so parents know, if you do need fingerprinting and you'd like it, they do offer scholarships if you are interested. I know we still do offer that. So that's an FYI in case anybody does want to get fingerprinted and is not fingerprinted. The school does offer that. So I'm all for fingerprinting. The hours, no. Fingerprinting, yes. That's all.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that has a comment on this policy? Okay, thank you. What's the next step point that this is taken? We're going to take the comments and...
What's going to happen now is that we will be taking input from the OCC, I'm going to send it via Parent Square, so I expect emails or meetings with parents or any way of communicating with the school via Parent Square. Then I'm going to take all that and bring you a second draft. I'll bring it back to the staff as well, that draft. So it's going to circulate more than once in our community before we have a final draft. So that's the next step.
Thank you. All right, let's go back to, we do have now the other document in the file.
Good Lord.
No, I'm gonna request to postpone this to the next meeting. Can I get a motion to approve a postponement to the next meeting? Okay, can I get a second? Okay, all in favor of postponing this next meeting? All right, thank you. All right. Propose Oasis conditions for classroom and school visitation and renewal policy. That's the same. I know we got out of it.
The same document we went over.
Yeah, it's right after it.
It's 1744 for that.
Again, this is the first reading of the document. It's the same process as the
Yeah, the next one is this one. It doesn't matter. Yeah, that's fine. We'll do it this.
Like that, you can feel free if you want to comment on anything about this policy.
About this policy, well, this policy is again recommended by the legal counsel. Have more systems in place so that everyone knows what's expected and how the process works. And that way there's no questions about how decisions are being made, but just have something more formalized. It's about time. We haven't had anything formalized like this, so it was recommended for the school to consider this. And they go hand in hand, because it goes with the other policy.
Comments from the board on the policy as written? Going to the first read. Yeah, I don't have any comments, but I will provide some feedback as I read some of these things. Any comments from anyone from the board? Are there any public comments?
I'll just tell you, I have a comment. Surprise.
If you can
Sure.
Thank you. And I have to ask you to please omit any names in your comments. Thank you.
The executive director or designated withdraw consent to be on campus, even if the visitor has a right to be on campus whenever there is reasonable basis. So I'm not going to keep reading this, but as Pete could say, this is pretty vague. You know, reasonable basis, like, give me something. Give me some kind of real, not just if you feel it. We can't leave, first, I acknowledge the importance of wanting to be able to have some, sure, the director being able to remove people, because if there's some crazy person, you got to get them off. You know, definitely, but I think we can't keep it this vague. I mean, if it's got to be something that there's physical threat to, or something that's, you know, against the law, then I would understand, but this seems like an intention to continue to get parents off for whatever reason. I'm sure when you read it, obviously, President, that you're going to see some things in here. I talked to the police chief the other day and gave him this. He was pretty shocked. So I would also maybe include the Salinas Police Department in conversations in this policy, so they can be aware of what they will be called for. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Okay, so if there are no more comments from the board, take some time, read it, write some comments. We can go down the read list from the different groups, and we come up with something that works for everyone.
The plan, right?
That's the plan.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, let's financial projections for next academic year. It's not a fun topic to discuss, but are you ready?
We're ready. You ready? Okay.
Very good.
So if you wanted to see maybe the microphone, you don't have to. So Donna and I had a conversation about the reserves and ongoing expenses and about projections for next year. In that conversation, we discussed the proposed schedules that I had presented to the board. She hasn't seen all of the schedules, but we discussed that I had proposed a salary schedule with an increase, and she cautioned Oasis from having ongoing expenses and using the reserves for that. And so we had some conversation. So that's the introduction, Donna, of our conversation. So you take it from there, and then I'll piggyback and continue.
For 18-19, the enrollment is projected at 245 with an ADA of 225, which is only 92%. And that in itself, I would hope that between parents assuring that their students attend school every single day, and if they're not able to for sickness or whatever, that they attend a Saturday academy that is provided. By doing so, there is every reason to believe that the ADA should be closer to 98%, 97%, 96% minimum, which would, you can figure about between 8,000 and 9,000 per ADA. So that's quite a bit of money that we're talking about, that the school, that one would hope that the school will have to work with. Because the revenues, the annual revenues, that's what you want to use to pay your salaries and benefits and all your operating costs. You want to stay within your revenues. So that's the most important thing, is to make sure the students are attending school so that you have that revenue to work with. With that being said, we're very conservative in budgeting. So at the beginning of the year, we look at, okay, what is the possible worst case scenario that could happen here? And that's where we budget our July 1. So with that said, Now, two things to take in consideration for next year. The governor has proposed another one-time funding, discretionary funding, can be used for any purpose, of $295 per prior year ADA. So we're estimating about $66,000 for that. So you have to bear in mind that that's in that fund balance. That is, in the net increase for the year. That is not ongoing. That's a one-time discretionary fund. That's one-time discretionary funds. So you don't want to use, you don't want to consider that for ongoing expenditures. You want to consider that for expenditures you need that year. Perhaps you need new computers. Perhaps you need new textbooks. Whatever it is that you might need, that's what you want to use those kind of monies for. The other thing that we have that is very preliminary at this point is the SB 740. We do not know at this point whether they will be oversubscribed next year or not. We went ahead and budgeted, hopefully that they would get that whole $1,170 per student. That's not guaranteed. So you also have to consider that's in your projected net increase. That may or may not be there. Even with taking that into consideration, we did not, in this first pass, we did not project a COLA for these staff. It would just be the step and column that they would get next year. So that's across the board through all the salaries. Again, this is very preliminary. The salary worksheet that we have worked up for next year is based on this year, and it always changes. There's always, you say this is what you think is going to happen, but it never does. You get as close as you can, but there's always going to be changes. As you can see from the July 1 budget this year to the second interim budget next year, this year, what a huge difference there was. So again, you have to keep that in consideration. One of the costs for this particular charter that we don't see in the other charters that we work with, and again, I want to clarify, we're not a large firm, so we do not have a huge charter base that we are using for comparison. We have the other 13 charters that we work with, but none of them have the number of classified teaching assistants that Oasis has. We have a couple of charters that close to the same enrollment as Oasis, and one of them has one teaching assistant, the other has none. Their teachers, their classrooms are not bigger than Oasis's. They're about the same size as Oasis. So that's, that we're projecting at this point about $167,000 for teachers' aides. Well, excuse me, no, that's about 100 and we've got to include the LCAP, so about 185,000, and that doesn't include the 61,000 for special ed aides, which those are extremely important. But that's it's just something I wanted to bring out. Okay, it's just something I want to make a point of. Yeah, it's because if you're trying to get highly qualified teachers, and if you want a highly qualified teacher, you're going to have to pay for that highly qualified teacher, and so you just have to keep that in mind. That where are you going to put your salary expense? The rest of the salaries are basically, it's the same. There were no new positions added for next year, and actually there's going to be a little bit of, it sounds like there's going to be a little bit of adjustment within the current structure for administration, and that's going to be reduced a little bit, it sounds like, to me, from our initial budgeting. The other expenses, your books and textbooks, those are all pretty close to this year. We haven't made a lot of change. Juanita did not indicate that we would need a lot of any particular material, so we haven't factored that into this point. But again, now this this is the most preliminary July 1 budget. You know, we're just tapping the surface right now. And as soon as second interim is approved, then we're going to jump in and get serious about the July 1 budget and get much more finite about the actual expenses. But as I said, everything else is pretty much the same. All of the operating expenses are about the same as this year. Keeping that in mind, and the $66,000 discretionary that you have for next year, and no COLA, that still gives you an increase of only $79,000. And once you take into consideration the step and column, which is not in here, and if you did not have this discretionary, if you look at the next year is at $46,000. But you know it's going to be less than that because you're going to have your step and column from this year, and then you know, at some point you have to pay COLA. You've got to start giving increases. So, and again, I realize that this school has a very healthy fund balance for a school of this size, but it was able to support itself during this last recession, and it will be able to support itself in the next recession if it is careful with its fund balance and assures that it doesn't get depleted on ongoing expenditures. And salaries and benefits are ongoing expenditures.
And salaries also, I just want to point out also, Donna, that benefits such as STIRS and health benefits keep going up every year.
Well, the STIRS, I can tell you, the numbers for STIRS, 17-18, 14.43, 18-19, 16.28, 19-20, 18.13, 20-21, 19%. That's 19% of your certificated salaries are going to go into STIRS contributions. And you have to think about that. You have to think about going forward.
In addition, health benefits also go up
every year,
more than
every
1 or
year.
2%. So
They're more like 5%.
Right, every year.
That's
so
going to be factored.
We'll have to, as we do our July 1st budget and prepare our LCAP, we have to make some adjustments to have a well-balanced budget for the next year. Well, the LCAP is for 3 years, so for the next 3 years, so that we don't end up using our reserves every year for ongoing expenses. And so we'll have to make some adjustments and changes to remain sustainable and healthy in our finances. So
the most important thing for parents to remember is to get your students to school. And if they can't come to school because they were sick, then get them to either Saturday Academy or do some independent study, because that is what the school is operating on, is the ADA. It's the students sitting in their seat every day learning. That's where the school draws the revenues. And if they have full ADA, at least a minimum of 96%, that's going to increase the revenues, which then increases the ability to pay higher salaries and ongoing expenses. So.
any questions from the board?
You're hired.
Well, I think that's on the next page.
Yeah, and also just to keep in mind, the rent also goes up.
How much? How much is the sandwich?
Well, the rent goes up. I don't know the numbers right off the top of my head, but I do know that the rent goes up every year, every 2 years, but it does go up, as well as the insurance. Insurance, liability, workers' comp, and all of those.
They make enough money.
Insurance.
Why do they need more?
You gotta pay.
Well, Anita, the rent is going to go up again on 12/1 of 18, and it will go up to 22,450.
For, yeah, this building, and then that building goes up again too, so.
Yeah, because I know that's a second expense.
Second subsidy, yeah.
I've incorporated.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then the land also goes up a little bit, but it also goes up, the vacant lots.
Vacant lot, yes.
Yes.
In 1920, that'll go up again.
Yeah. So,
Well, actually, excuse me, 1819. 1780 and it's 6335, it's gonna go up to 6525 and then 6720.
Thank you.
Thank you, Donna.
Cost analysis for field trip transportation.
Okay, that's the project I've been working on. Okay, so what I have for you is the City of Salinas buses. So the question has been asked before about why are we not renting buses from other districts? Other districts are not as cooperative or they do not have buses available. So we have reached out to other districts before and most times they have their buses unavailable to us. So the only district that has been or has had the buses available to us has been the Salinas City School District buses. And that's the $50 per hour, plus $3.30 for every mile. And then we did an estimated cost of 9 hours, 120 miles, and this is going to San Francisco and back. And if it's about 50 people, but maybe 60, depending on the size of the child, some children, we can put 3 children to a seat, and sometimes it's only 2. So the estimated cost is $1,176. So $1,176. And again, it's based on availability. Sometimes they are available, sometimes they're not, and they prioritize the district's needs, which is understandable. So the latest field trip we had, we needed a bus for 3 classes, and the city did not have a bus available to us. So we had to rent some vans and use parent drivers for that. So that is where the owning your own transportation becomes very useful to us. Enterprise rental, 2 SUVs, it was a $200. Oh, it was for gas. I know what it was. So you have to, they give you the vehicles, and then you have to make sure there's gas back in that vehicle. If they give you the vehicle with half a tank, you gotta make sure you return it with half. If it's a full tank, then you gotta make sure it's full tank. So estimated about $100 per vehicle to refill, to return it. And then is the daily fee of $158.21. So that comes down to $474.63, about 42 students, people. So it comes down to about $1,707.47, the cost. Then the Discovery bus, it's a flat rate, and it's a 10-hour trip from Salinas to San Francisco and back. It's about 40 people, no more than 50. 40, they said, was probably more closer, and the flat fee is $1,400. And then it comes down to Suburbans. Ford brand is the one I've been looking at, 10 passenger vehicles. There is an estimated cost of $3.25 per gallon, and that goes up. So it goes up and down, most likely up and down. And I went with a like Shell gas station cost. So I know if people say, well, there's Arco, yeah, well, there's other ones that it's a lot less, but I went with the Shell, which is the closest to us. The full tank is 25 gallons. GMB cost is $550
Per year?
Per year, yes, per vehicle, yes. And it's 14 miles per gallon. And then the monthly storage fee is $140. Insurance, $170. It's about $2,000 a year. So I divided that by 12. Maintenance is about $70. Ford is offering a maintenance plan for 5 years, and it comes down to $70 per vehicle. It doesn't include replacing the tires, but it does include oil change, the 100,000 mile major maintenance, and the every so many miles or every 3 months maintenance. So I did ask, and they said that Ford is offering that maintenance, and it has to be paid in advance. And I did explain that it was for a school, and that they would maintain it every 3 months. And they said it's every 3 months, or if you reach the mileage before, then you take it in before. Because we have to keep a log, we would have to keep a log of that. The monthly cost, let's see, monthly cost of DMV, I estimated at $50. That's where the $50 come from. $81.25 of gas, and what I did is I multiplied, I tried to get how many, so 220 miles from here to San Francisco, so you would have to come about $80 to 100 max to fill the tank, to go back and forth. Depreciation, the IRS allows you to depreciate a vehicle up to 5 years. So in 5 years, that vehicle is completely depreciated. So I estimated out of an approximate amount of $40,000 per vehicle divided by 60 months, about $700 a month in depreciation for that vehicle. I mean, as we know, all new cars depreciate the minute you drive off the lot. So in this particular case, the IRS will allow you to depreciate up to 5 years that vehicle, and so you depreciate. At the end of the 5th year, it would be worth nothing to the IRS, zero. So it would be 10 passengers, and that would be at $1,211. That would be for 1 month. Now, take into consideration that the monthly storage fee, the insurance, the maintenance, the depreciation, and the DMV, those are costs that will happen every month. At least the depreciation as well. It's not an expense, but you already invested that going in and buying those vehicles. The gasoline is the only thing that depends on where you're going. If you're traveling a long distance, or if you're staying in the area. So the gas cost will all depend on how far you're driving. There's benefits. If you look at this $1,211.25 for one vehicle multiplied by 4 to transport 40 students, that's $4,844.something. So it sounds like a huge amount, and it is if you look at it from that perspective. Now we're going to look at the pros and cons, the benefits of that, and also the disadvantages. It's a big investment. It is a responsibility, an added responsibility, added regulations by the insurance, and all of that. So there's benefits to this as well, to having our own transportation. And I wish teachers were here. I think also left. I wanted them to talk a little bit about some of the benefits. I can tell you from the administration the benefits that we have. But I think it's better for the teachers to explain what benefits they see. And they did in the survey, they completed a survey, the community completed a survey as well as the staff. They listed some benefits, and they also listed some places where they would want to go if we had our own transportation. We have Avid Elementary, and in that our goal is to take our students to visit several community colleges as well as universities. We are launching our Kinder to College program for next year, which is taking the students to our Kinder to community colleges. The goal and hope is for us to take our 6th graders to tour universities out of the area. When I mean out of the area, do I mean out of the county? It could be out of the state as well. Why not? Take our students to visit other colleges, and it will be part of the curriculum. There will be academic standards and curriculum that we covered, so that students can visit other colleges and see what the world has to offer out there for college opportunities, and planting that seed in 6th grade, so they can see that there is colleges out there in other parts of the nation where they could apply and they should apply once they're ready to do that. And that would be, perhaps in our visions, it would be a whole week's travel time, so they can tour sixth graders at the end of their 6th grade year with us. And so that they will be looking forward to that. So that is my brief presentation. Do you have any questions? I know you'll need additional information. This is not all you need, but this was at least the beginning of the conversation about potentially making this investment. It is a big investment as well as a big responsibility. So I'm here to take any questions you may have and then bring that information back to you.
I don't see the price of this building.
The price, well, I got 2 quotes this far. One was for 30, let's see, one was for 39,000, the other one was for 38,000. And when I called to verify, Ford was offering, instead of a $2,000 rebate, a $3,000 rebate. So they said the rebates was what made the difference. So what I did is I estimated it without a rebate. Because it depends on the rebate at that time. And that's a rebate from Ford. It's not a rebate from the dealership. So it's between the 38,000 and the 42. It was 41,000 and a few cents, and I brought that the last time. But we're going to be looking for at least one more estimate from another dealership. We have at least 3 to review. But once we get there, the estimated price is, it ranges from the high 38s and the high 41.
And how does that wrap up with our finances?
That's what I was saying. We'll save our money.
Well,
Kids don't buy anything. Not
well,
everybody.
considering everything, you know,
Yeah.
having everything, because we are talking that we're tight.
Yeah.
Well, that would not be considered an ongoing expense, so that's a one-time expense that it's cash, it would be cash off from your fund balance.
From the fund balance.
So if you
As
look at,
opposed to,
That's a capital, right?
well, that's if you
It
go
would
with
be a
the,
capital purchase that, as long as said would be expense.
that's if you go with the purchase of vehicles. But if you do the rentals, that is part of our,
That would be an ongoing.
an ongoing expense that's part of our budget. Okay. So those are really the 2 options that we're looking at.
well, again, renting buses is an option. It would be an ongoing expense, and it would be at the availability of the district
Sure.
or the Discovery bus and all that. And our options will be limited. Outdoor education is valuable to us. We value outdoor education. So having our vehicles, the most recent field trip the students had was to Garden Park. And it was very educational, and our teachers would be more encouraged to do more outdoor education. And have our students explore learning outside of this campus, which is valuable as well. Having our students visit different colleges is part of our mission, it's part of our mission, it's part of AVID. And as one parent said, we want the families who bring their children here to see that there's something different that we offer that other places do not offer. Something that is going to encourage them not only to bring their children here, but to keep them here for the 7 years, 6 years, or as many years as they keep their children with us, because we offer something different. And for us, planting that seed on our students, not only for outdoor education, but to explore what colleges are out there for starting in kinder, is extremely important. Now our minority population has increased significantly from before having a handful of minority students to now having the majority, 90% almost, or close to 90%, or a little bit slightly over 90%. It's high. And we need our students to start thinking about college now and what options they might have later. But it would be from our reserves. So if we were to take this expense of 160, about 160,000 plus 100,000 for the playground, so we'll be using the reserves about $260,000 from our reserves. And it will be a capitalized expense, both of those items. The playground, which has already been approved, and the vehicles, the van.
Okay. Any questions from the board? What, in your vision, when do you want to have a resolution for this?
In my vision, I would like to have a resolution by May, so that we can make the purchase in early August, so we can have the monies there and order them. This would be a special order, because there are 10 passenger vehicles. So in May or June at the latest.
It would have to be part of the planning for the following year. Like, I don't want to just purchase something and then the planning needs to be there in order for a purchase like this to even, I mean, you would, even for the rental, for either of our options. The planning needs to be here before we make a decision. So be prepared to provide us, and so talk to your staff, in order for us to make a decision either way, I'd like to start planning some of these trips and whatever you're going to be using transportation for. Otherwise,
Okay,
there's,
we can do that.
you know what I mean?
We already have that actually in the survey, part of it. We just have to fine tune it and revise it and make sure it's.
Okay, I'm just saying, when it's presented, I think a full plan for the use of this transportation with either one of the options, so that we make the best decision for the use of the funds, whether it's ongoing or it's a one-time.
Definitely, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so yes, we'll have a plan for you for field trips per grade level for the next year.
No, yes, that, on that I was thinking, how many field trips have we had average a year?
I have that information, I have roughly that information, I can bring it to you the next, so how many field trips, I have that already because I collect that for my reports, but I would say classes on average go to at least 5 field trips per class, at least. Now, I do have some overachievers, and they go once a month, and at least once a month they have, and you can't make them change their mind because they will jump any hoops in order for them to take their children outdoors and do those activities. So the answer would be about average 5 a month, but we do have classes that go 8 to 10 times per month. So, I will bring that down, I have it.
Okay. So yeah, that would be
I'll
super
bring the
important
field,
to know.
so what I'm going to do
An
is
average
bring,
of 15 field trips per year on both options.
yes.
And then that's really going to weigh which one we're going to go.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring you the field trip information for 16, 17, and then what I have planned and so far done for 17, 18. Okay? And then what we have planned for 18, 19. How about that? Would that give you enough information? What we did, what we're doing, and what
Most
we're going to
information would be great.
Okay, I'll bring you that.
It's a huge expense, so.
I agree. So I'll bring you the 3-year data, so that you, yeah, definitely will. We'll do that.
Are there any comments from the public on this topic? No?
No.
Thank you. All right, let's move on to 6.8, draft a school calendar for the next academic year.
Okay, so what you have,
Right after that.
you have that calendar,
Yeah.
and the calendar has been, the first draft has been reviewed by the staff as well as by the OCC. Districts are required to offer 180 school days. Charter schools are required to offer at least 175. I contacted the state, and that's what they confirmed. I knew this, but I wanted to confirm, and I also checked with them just to make sure there's nothing being proposed out there that might change this for next year and be caught off guard, because that has happened before. So they said no, nothing. The person in charge of that said there was nothing that he could think of or that was being proposed. And so he said 180 for districts still applied and 175 for charter schools still applied. So we were able to calculate here and project 177 instructional days, 193 teacher days, 130 regular days, and 47 minimum days. My screen, I lost it. Okay, here it is. So, and again, we have Thanksgiving, the whole week off for Thanksgiving. We also have 3 weeks off for the winter and 2 weeks off for spring break. Those are the biggest, longest breaks we have. We continue to have every minimum day on Wednesday. We continue to have conference week the month of March. And where's my other month? Month of March. Are we missing one? October? Oh, October. October, right here, 29. Oh yes, I see why. I don't see the whole week, because it was 29th, 30th, 31st, 1st and 2nd. It's broken down, 3 days in October and 3 days in November. So we have those 2 weeks for family teacher conferences. And we will start on the 1st of August, which is a Wednesday. Starting any sooner, it will be July, and I don't think that's gonna fly with the staff starting in July. I doubt it.
Kids have too much time off right now.
And then in June, the children will be off by Thursday, and those will be minimum days, Thursday the 12th and 13th, and the 14th will be a teacher work day for them to clear out their classrooms so that we can clean the carpets and do what we do every winter. And every June is when we do the carpets and the big deep cleaning of our campus. If we wanted to add the other 3 days, we would have to go and teach until the 19th, so that we could squeeze the other 3 days in to our calendar. 8:15 to 3 p.m. for kinder, and 8:15 to 3:15, still the same schedule. I have to do the minute calculation, and if the minute calculation supports this, then it's fine. If it doesn't, then we'll be forced to add days to our calendar. There is a minimum required instructional minutes for kinder, and playtime counts for kinder. So we're always okay with kinder because it's a full day kinder program. When it comes to upper grade, I have to be cautious of not cutting it too short. I want to make sure I have a cushion of minutes just in case. So I have to do my calculation, and then this, once it's approved, the calendar, the minute calculation per grade level, and it is in alignment with what the state requires per grade level, then I send it off to the district. Not for approval, but for their information and record keeping. Do you have any questions about the calendar for 18-19, the proposal?
Questions?
Any questions from the board? Comments?
A comment?
Yes, a comment?
Yes, a comment. Well, what I've seen in other schools is like, for example, if we're up in the minutes that we're short based on this, I've seen that on the days that we don't have a full week of school week, let's say a holiday or something's coming up, then that Wednesday is not a minimum day.
Oh, see, we've done that before. Yes, I see, like, if you see on the 18th of February is a day off, then the 20th, it will be a full day.
Exactly.
So we can make up the minutes.
Yes.
That's a good idea. Instead of
Yes.
adding days, we just
Exactly.
make that day longer, so we can have a few extra. That's a good idea. I like that idea. Like the 15th of February, the September 3rd, there will be a few days where we can make it a long.
November 12th.
Uh-huh.
When I see October 8th, that's, yeah, October 8th, you know, things like that.
Yeah. I see.
And
that.
it works well.
That's a good idea. Okay.
Instead of adding things.
Instead of adding days. That would be, I also, based on this, I know it's 3 days, but it's 3 days times 250 children. So I also have to see how it might affect the budget. Because again, it's 250 children times 3 days. So we have to take that into consideration. And we're looking, although it's not a business, Oasis needs funding to offer the programs and services that we offer and to hire and maintain our highly qualified staff. Money is a driven factor, unfortunately. So, any other questions from the board? No? Okay. Any comments from the public then? You want to open it for comments?
Public comment? No, thank you. Saturday Academy?
Okay. Let me see. Is that what I have? Okay, well, this is just a report from administration that we're offering Saturday Academy on March 3rd, as well as on Friday, March 16th. And then we're adding a couple of Saturdays every month for April and May, so that we can make up some of the lost ADA. We have no more professional development days, so we can't offer anything in April, May, or June.
Further incentivize
Further incentivize
participation.
attendance?
Yeah, getting, I mean, I don't know what else, what do you?
We're
I
not.
don't know, I'm trying to think, like, the kid's not gonna wanna get out of bed on a Saturday, so you're gonna incentivize something, other than they're gonna learn, I mean, I get it, but you're like, Saturday. How do you pancakes? I mean, you can't reward, I get it, but.
Well, we'll give them a snack. So that's the only.
Check the burritos, I don't know. I'll buy burritos. That always gets me out on a Saturday.
Now I know.
Go back.
Now we know what moves you.
How many kids per side?
It's just, it was a side comment, I'm trying to think of, how can I get my kid on a Saturday?
How many staff are here?
For Saturday Academy, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 staff members. So three. Yeah, so we have three people.
Hannah was not simple. Saturday Academy, they had pizza.
Oh, they offer pizza? Oh, not a bad idea.
So the kids, you know, oh, pizza day, we see it like pizza day. Time to do
They will
your
make sure
homework.
their parents bring them to school, right? Oh, it's not a bad idea. We feed them
I
pizza.
mean, I'm just trying to think.
I'm all for it. Whatever brings them
It's
here.
gonna get them.
Come. The pizza's what people want.
It's incentive, yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if parents can see the same, you know, what's incentive. I'm trying to think how
Your
you can
kids
get
in
them here.
school.
Yes.
What
I mean,
we're
for us, we
incentive.
need it, right? From our perspective, it's like, get them here.
Your
get them
child is
here.
in school.
But for the parent to really think, like, oh, they were sick for 3 days and now, how do I get them here? Let me see some campaign of some sort
Yeah.
to get them here. Yeah, I'm gonna get to you in a second. Let me just.
Okay.
Well, we can do what we used to do in the old days, the home study stuff, can we?
We do independent study. We do. For some children, yes, we do.
Okay. Any other comments?
Well, I know that like the NASA's academy is successful, so maybe if we select like a theme or something that's very attractive and even provide like an agenda of events that is like super fun, you know, that might get.
But at the same time, we want to make sure that the students don't miss during the week, so they would come only for that Saturday, because there's such a great activity going on. And so it has to be, what we offer on Saturday has to be the same or comparable to what's being offered during the week. So if we, right now, we decide, well, we're gonna offer block, and we don't offer it during the day, then it's really not allowed, not permitted. So it has to be the same or very closely comparable to what we offer during the week. In this academic.
But if we do offer like engineering, so we could branch off that. I mean, I don't know, I'm just trying to think of attractive ways
Yeah, definitely.
that motivates students.
That's it.
Well, pizza will be the first.
Try.
Pizza. Get them here. We'll feed them pizza. Not a problem. I can do it. We can do it.
Any other comments from the board?
Recommendation. So a couple of years ago, my twins had bronchitis, and as you know, it's kind of serious. And Erica had told me that I could sign them out, and then they would be considered absent. Maybe something I've told parents that when they like, okay, my kid's sick, what should I do? You know, I don't want them to miss school, and I tell them, well, just go sign them out, and you're good. They don't even have to do Saturday school. I don't know if that's something we can let the parents know. And then maybe a suggestion for the independent packets would be just putting them in the kids' binders, and if they get them done, they do, and they don't have to go to independent study, but just stick them in there already. If they get them done, great. If they don't, well, you gotta come, I don't know. I know I would do that. If my kid got the packet, I would be like, okay, you gotta get this done, or guess what? You gotta go to school on Saturday.
You just made me think of something, or we can even say, come mind racing now. When we call them, like, oh, how would you like to make up for your absence? Would you like to do independent study, or would you like to attend Saturday Academy, like when we person them to call parents?
But you can only, but you can only do independent study so many days out of calendar year too.
Yes, it's not, Oasis is not an independent study charter school, so we have to be cautious about advertising us as independent study.
Or advertising the other thing about signing them out.
Right, yeah. No, they need to be here. They need to come to school, and if they get sick, then we send them home, of course. So they need to physically be here.
I mean, everything we monitor.
Yeah, to be here. They need to come here.
Okay. Thank you for everyone's comments. It's time for some action items here. 8.1, the second interim financial report. I think everyone got the information from Donna. So I'm going to entertain a motion to approve the second interim report as prepared and presented. Somebody, motion? All right, can I get a second? Second.
Second.
All right, that's already seconded. All those in favor of approving the second interim report as prepared and presented, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, there you go, that's done. The next item is to approve the appointment of treasurer. So the recommendation is that we approve the reappointment of Jorge Gonzalez as the UCM board treasurer. Can I get a motion? Okay, can I get a second, please? Second by Laura. All those in favor of approving Jorge Gonzalez as the board treasurer, say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Abstentions? Okay, you're it. Okay.
You are it.
You're it. The Oasis Cars Winter Report. So it's a recommendation that the board approve the Cars Winter Report as prepared and presented by ARI and our administration. Can I get a motion to approve that report? So moved. Can I get a second? Okay, and I'm going to open it up for Juanita. Can you, is there anything that you'd like to?
And about this report,
Yes.
this lovely report, okay,
Yes.
well, the CARS is related to Title I funding, and there is changes in the reporting system now. There's always changes, I don't know why we can keep it the same way for at least a few years. But anyway, there's, this report is done several times a year, and so we get funding from the state. I believe right now we're receiving $60,200 and some dollars and some change. So it's in the low 60,000s that we receive of Title I funding. And our lovely Kim is the one who helped us with this lovely report. There's a lot of questions and things that we need to, questions she asked of us so that she can fill out this report. And then there is a lot of other stuff that we need to do in order to receive the $60,000 Title I funding. And here it is, the report.
Any questions from the board? Okay, all those in favor of approving this report, say aye.
Aye.
All those against it, say nay. So be it. Approved. Okay, the next one is Oasis to become a Title I Part A school-wide program school. So before I even entertain a motion.
What is it?
Yes.
Okay, so there is two ways of using the funds, and one is targeted and one is school-wide. So Oasis has been using the funds school-wide, and the board needs to make a motion to continue using the funds school-wide, but now there needs to be a recommendation for the board to accept this school-wide approach. After this is done, we have to then get an OCC member, a teacher, and an administrator. There's 4 or 5 different people that we need to get, and there's going to be this committee that will conduct an assessment, a needs assessment. Once that is done, we have to put together a plan that will discuss how the $60,000 will be used school-wide, and there will be recommendations made, and then that plan will be brought back to you for a final approval. So it's pretty much how we're going to spend the $60,000 school-wide. Ed Vanderberg. I contacted Ed and I asked if he could assist us in the process of creating this plan with this advisory group. And he said, yes, he could help us with that. Since we already have pieces in place, we just have to get all of the people first, and then the assessment, then the plan, and then approval by the board, hopefully before June, so that we can have then this plan for next year.
Okay, so in the past, it wasn't a school-wide program, it was a targeted, limited and targeted services for certain
It was in the
students.
past, yes.
Right, now
It's always been school-wide.
it's always been
Rules
school-wide.
have changed now.
Now it has to be recommended.
Has to be recommended.
So you can't just do it, you have to recommend, the entity has to, okay,
The rules change, pretty much.
okay.
You have such a high population.
More than 40%. We have more than 40% socioeconomically disadvantaged students, so that's why.
That would be the reason I know.
To go school-wide.
Yes, the population has
Your
changed.
whole school.
So we need to be utilized, the funds that we receive need to be utilized across everyone. Okay, so that is the motion is to accept Oasis as a Title I SWP school. Can I get a motion for that?
So,
May I get a second? Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
I,
Against? Okay, motion passed. There you go.
thank you, Don.
Professional services contract with ARI? Who are they? Okay. Yeah, so it's our new contract with ARI for the following year is up, so I need to take a motion to recommend that we approve their professional services contract for the next academic year. Can I get a motion for that? Okay, what's your name? Second, please.
I second.
Okay, seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Come on, Pete. Those against? Okay, motion passes. All right, we're down to announcements. Congratulations.
So we have our new family orientation, tomorrow is going to be our first one. March 14th, April 25th at 6:30 here in the Leopard Shark Den. We have some advertisement, TV and radio advertisement, as well as theater advertisement, but specifically the radio and TV advertisement, television advertisement is for the orientations coming up for new families, for prospective new families for our lottery for next school year. And we will be, every year, we attend the job fairs around the area. CHUMB has actually attended CHUMB last year. This year I will be attending the job fair, and I thought it was going to be at NCOE, and no, it's going to be at Harnell. I just got the email. So I misunderstood. It's put together by NCOE, I'm assuming, because I got an email from NCOE, but it's at Harnell. So we'll be looking there to recruit substitutes, teachers, anyone who might want to apply, just to give out our information. So if anyone is looking for work after March 15th, which is when the districts give out their notices of rehire or not, that's when people will start looking for employment. And so that's why we do it every year, because it never fails. You always need at least to fill one position in your school. Saturday Academy, like I said before. Here it says March 16th, during the Professional Development Day. Today we added March 3rd to our Saturday Academy. And Oasis will be offering Saturday Academy during spring break from the 26th through the 29th, which is only 4 days to make up excused or unexcused absences. So we hope for that to be successful so we can make up and end strong for our P2 report. And we have people committed already to teaching those days. They're not going out of town because they have to teach our kids.
All right, we have some future agenda items there.
Yep.
Anything else to add on?
Nothing else. Transportation there.
Okay. All right. Adjourn this meeting at 9:11. Thank you very much.